you decide to stop texting and calling. Maybe it's because you want to see how much she really cares. Maybe it's because you're tired of always being the one to initiate. Maybe you're hoping that by pulling away, she'll start chasing you. But what happens next might not be what you expect. At first, there may be no reaction at all. The silence might stretch for hours, maybe even a day or two, and you start to wonder if she even noticed. This is the moment where your patience is tested, because deep down you want a reaction. You want her to feel your absence, to miss you, to wonder why you suddenly stopped reaching out. But if she doesn't react immediately, you start second-guessing yourself. Here's what you need to understand. Her initial reaction is not necessarily an indication of her final response. A woman who has been used to your constant attention might not register your absence right away, simply because she assumes you will reach out eventually, like you always do. If she's been accustomed to you texting first, calling first, always being the one to check in, then your silence at first just feels like a minor break in the usual routine, not a dramatic shift. However, if she's emotionally invested, if she genuinely values your presence, the silence will start to settle in. At first, she may brush it off. Maybe you're just busy, maybe something came up, but as more time passes and you still don't text or call, she starts to notice the difference. The absence becomes real. The first thing she feels is confusion. Why aren't you reaching out? Did something happen? Did she do something wrong? Is this a test? These questions begin to circle in her mind, and depending on the nature of your connection, her response will vary. If she was only casually interested or saw you as an option rather than a priority, she may not be too concerned. She might even welcome the silence, seeing it as an opportunity to explore other options or reaffirm her independence. But if she genuinely values you, that confusion starts turning into unease. She begins to wonder if she miscalculated your interest. She starts checking her phone more often, scrolling through old messages, replaying conversations in her head. The thought crosses her mind, did I lose him? This is where her perception of your value starts to shift. When you were constantly available, constantly reaching out, she may have taken your presence for granted. But now that you're no longer doing so, she's forced to see the contrast, what it feels like when you're there versus when you're not. And this is the moment that determines everything. Some women will react with indifference because they were never truly invested in the first place. If she doesn't text, if she doesn't seem to care, then your silence has simply exposed the truth. She was never emotionally attached, and continuing to chase her would have been a waste of time. This realization can be painful, but it is also incredibly freeing, because now you're no longer in a one-sided situation. But if she does care, her reaction will show it. She might send a casual text just to test the waters, something simple like, hey, how's your day? Or even a completely unrelated message just to check if you're still interested. If she's more emotionally invested, she might directly ask, are you okay? Or even, why haven't you texted me? These messages are not just words, they are a sign that she is beginning to feel your absence. However, some women will not react outwardly right away. Instead, they'll go through an internal struggle, debating whether they should be the one to break the silence. This is where ego comes into play. She might think, why should I be the one to reach out first? If she has been in control of the dynamic before, if she's been the one dictating the pace of the relationship, she might resist the urge to respond, hoping that you will cave first. But the longer you hold your ground, the more she begins to feel the weight of that silence. If she truly sees you as valuable, she won't let the silence stretch forever. She will either reach out directly, or she will start engaging with you in indirect ways, liking your social media posts, replying to your stories, even finding excuses to be around you. This is the moment where your true worth in her eyes is revealed. If your absence creates a void, if she starts to feel that missing space in her life, then you are more valuable to her than she might have initially realized. But if she continues on as if nothing happened, if she shows no sign of curiosity or concern, then she is already emotionally detached, and your silence was simply an alignment with her existing feelings. And this is why stopping the texts and calls is such a powerful move, not because it's a trick, not because it's a manipulation tactic, but because it forces clarity. It forces the truth to rise to the surface. You no longer have to guess where you stand because her reaction or lack of reaction tells you everything you need to know. Many men make the mistake of breaking the silence too soon, of panicking when they don't get an immediate response. They assume that no reaction means she doesn't care, so they send a follow-up text, hoping to restart the conversation. But what they fail to realize is that silence takes time to work. It is not about triggering an instant reaction. It is about creating a shift in perception. A woman who truly values you will not let the silence stretch on indefinitely. At some point, she will act. She will reach out. She will show her interest. And if she doesn't, then your silence did not make her lose interest. It simply revealed that she never had enough interest to begin with. And that is the real power of this approach. You are no longer the one chasing, the one constantly seeking validation through her responses. Instead, you are allowing reality to unfold naturally without forcing anything. You are letting her show you through her own actions exactly how much she cares. So when you stop texting and calling, her reaction will tell you everything. It may take time, but eventually the truth always comes out. When you stop texting and calling, she may not react immediately, but if there was any level of interest, something starts to shift beneath the surface. In many cases, when a woman begins to notice that your presence is no longer guaranteed, she won't jump straight to missing you. She will test you first. This is a psychological mechanism, a way for her to gauge whether your silence is genuine or just an attempt to get her attention. At first, her testing might be subtle. She may drop a casual text, nothing too direct, just enough to see if you'll engage. It might be something simple like, hey, how's your day? Or even something completely unrelated to the situation, like sending a meme or reacting to an old message. On the surface, this might seem insignificant, but it's her way of checking if you're still emotionally invested. She wants to see if you'll immediately respond, if you'll jump at the opportunity to reconnect. Because if you do, she has confirmation that she still has power over the dynamic. But sometimes, instead of reaching out directly, she will test your patience in more indirect ways. This could be through social media, liking your post, watching your stories, leaving a comment that feels casual but is meant to remind you that she's still there. She may even post something that seems designed to provoke a reaction, maybe a picture that hints at her being out with friends, appearing happy and carefree, just to see if you'll break your silence and reach out. This is where most men make a mistake. They see these small signals and immediately take them as an invitation to restart the conversation, believing that her tiny breadcrumbs are a sign she misses them. But what they fail to realize is that these actions are often just tests designed to see how easily you can be pulled back in. If she texts you and you respond right away, she knows she still holds control. If she posts something and you immediately react, she knows she can still get your attention without putting in any real effort. A woman who is genuinely interested, who truly feels the impact of your absence, will do more than just test you. She will take real action. But before that happens, she needs to see if you're serious about your silence. She needs to know whether you are simply playing a game or if you have actually removed yourself from the situation. If she realizes that your silence is real, that you are no longer available at her convenience, then she will feel something deeper than curiosity. She will feel uncertainty. And uncertainty is one of the most powerful emotions when it comes to attraction. When a woman feels completely secure that you will always be there, always texting, always calling, she has no reason to question her own feelings. She can take her time, she can explore her options, and she can be comfortable knowing that you are just a message away But when that certainty is disrupted, when she starts to feel the weight of not knowing where she stands with you, that is when the real test begins, not for you, but for her. Because now she has to decide. If she truly cares, if she values your presence, she won't just test you, she will start making moves to regain your attention. This is where her real interest is revealed. Does she put in effort? Does she call instead of just sending a lazy text? Does she ask you why you've been distant instead of just liking your Instagram post and hoping that's enough? If she does nothing beyond small tests, then she was never as interested as you thought. The truth is, a woman who is afraid of losing you won't just send a half-hearted message or play social media games. She will want clarity. She will want to know why you disappeared, why you stopped initiating, and if she genuinely cares, she will seek an answer directly. But if she never reaches that point, if her tests are all she ever does, then that tells you everything you need to know. And this is why patience is key. Many men fail this test because they are too eager for any sign of interest. They see a small move and they immediately respond thinking they have won. But real attraction, real connection, doesn't come from responding to breadcrumbs. It comes from seeing whether she's willing to go beyond them. If she truly values you, she won't just test you, she will take action. If she doesn't, then you have your answer. When you stop texting and calling a woman, one of the most revealing things that happens is how she rationalizes your silence to herself. The human mind craves certainty. And when that certainty is disrupted, the brain scrambles to make sense of the situation. At first, she may brush it off, telling herself that you must be busy, that you're caught up in work, that you'll eventually reach out. But as time passes and your silence remains, her rationalizations will begin to shift. She might start wondering if something has changed, if maybe she misread your interest, if she did something to push you away, or if you have simply lost attraction. And this is where the real power of your silence comes into play. Because the way she interprets your silence will often reveal how much she actually values your presence. If she had genuine feelings for you, she won't just let the silence sit. At first, she may still hold back, expecting you to reach out first. But deep down, if she truly cares, she will start to feel a growing sense of discomfort. This discomfort isn't just about missing your texts or calls. It's about uncertainty, about losing the control she thought she had. When you were always initiating, always available, she never had to question where she stood with you. But the moment you remove that certainty, she has no choice but to start questioning everything. The first reaction will often be internal. She will start replaying past interactions in her mind, trying to analyze what may have caused the shift. Did she say something wrong? Did she give off the impression that she was interested? Did she take too long to reply to your last message? This kind of overthinking happens because now, for the first time, she isn't in control of the dynamic. She no longer has the luxury of assuming that you'll always be there, and that realization forces her to reassess everything. But here's where it gets interesting. Her rationalization won't stay internal for long. If enough time passes and she still doesn't hear from you, she may begin to seek validation from external sources. She might mention you to a friend, casually bringing up your name to see if someone else can help her understand your silence. She may even check your social media more frequently, looking for signs that you're still active, trying to decode whether you're ignoring her specifically or just withdrawing from everyone. And if the uncertainty grows strong enough, she might even take a more direct approach. She may send a "Hey stranger" text, something that feels casual but is actually a subtle way of breaking the silence without making herself too vulnerable. She doesn't want to admit that your absence is affecting her, but at the same time, she doesn't want to be left in the dark. If she has pride, she won't come out and say she misses you, but she will send out signals to see if you're still willing to engage. The problem is many men misinterpret these signals. They see her reaching out and assume that it means she's ready to invest, but in reality, it's often just an attempt to regain control of the situation. She isn't necessarily reaching out because she's realized your worth. She's reaching out because she doesn't like the feeling of uncertainty. And if you immediately respond, if you act as if nothing has changed, then you've just reassured her that she still has power over the dynamic. But here's the most important thing to understand. How she reacts to your silence in the long run will tell you exactly where you stand with her. If she truly values you, if your presence genuinely meant something to her, then your absence will create a void. And if that void becomes unbearable, she will move beyond just testing the waters. She will make a real effort to reconnect. If she was only keeping you around for convenience, she may attempt a few small tests, but she won't actually chase. And that's where a lot of men struggle, because when she doesn't chase, they start to panic. They assume that their silence isn't working, that they need to reinitiate contact to fix the situation. But the truth is, if a woman doesn't feel the need to truly pursue you when you step back, then she was never as invested as you thought. Your silence forces clarity. It eliminates the illusion that she can have your attention whenever she wants without putting in effort. It makes her confront the reality of what happens when she doesn't reciprocate, when she takes your presence for granted. And in that confrontation, the truth about her feelings will always come to the surface. If she genuinely cares, she won't let your silence go unanswered. If she doesn't, then you have just saved yourself from chasing someone who was never truly invested in you. When you stop texting and calling a woman, she may not react immediately, but as time passes, her response will reveal a great deal about where you stand with her. One of the most critical shifts that happens is in her perception of your value. Whether she realizes it consciously or not, people tend to assign value based on scarcity and availability. When something or someone is always present, always accessible, their perceived worth diminishes. But when that same presence is suddenly withdrawn, its value is reevaluated. At first, she might dismiss your silence as a temporary phase. She might assume that you're busy, that you'll eventually resume the usual pattern of communication, or that you're simply playing a small game. This is where most women remain unbothered. They assume they still hold control over the situation. If she was used to you initiating, if she felt secure that she could always get your attention, then she won't panic at the beginning. She may even use this period to see how long it takes before you break and reach out again. But as time passes and she notices that you aren't playing along, that your silence isn't just a momentary pause, but a real shift in behavior, something deeper begins to occur. The same presence she once overlooked now becomes noticeable in its absence. Your texts, your calls, your availability were once things she took for granted, but when they are no longer there, she starts to feel the difference. What happens next depends entirely on how she truly felt about you in the first place. If she wasn't truly invested, if you were just someone who entertained her when she was bored, someone she kept around as an option, then your silence won't necessarily create an emotional void. Instead, she may simply move on, finding validation elsewhere, replacing your attention with that of another man. And this is something a lot of men struggle to accept, but it's a crucial realization. If she can easily replace you, then she was never truly invested in the first place. However, if she did have a genuine interest in you, if you had a real presence in her life, then the absence will not go unnoticed for long. She will start to feel something she hadn't expected, doubt. Doubt in her assumptions, doubt in her level of control, doubt in the way she viewed the situation. For many women, this is a rare experience. They are used to men chasing, to men proving their interest, to men consistently making themselves available. When a man suddenly removes himself from that equation without warning, it forces her to reevaluate everything she believed about the dynamic. She begins to wonder, why isn't he reaching out? Has he lost interest? Did I misjudge how much he cared? Is he seeing someone else? This shift in perception is powerful because it triggers an emotional response. Instead of you being the one chasing, instead of you being the one proving your worth, she is now the one experiencing uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds curiosity, curiosity breeds attention, and attention breeds desire. At this point, she has two choices. If she truly cares, if she feels a connection, she will make an effort. Not a half-hearted, surface-level attempt, but a real effort. She will reach out in a way that makes it clear she doesn't want to lose you. She won't just send a passive text to test the waters. She will engage, she will ask questions, she will show genuine interest. But if she was never truly invested, if her interest was only based on convenience, then she won't go beyond small tests. She may throw out a, "Hey, how have you been?" or like one of your posts just to see if you're still easily accessible, but she won't do anything meaningful to actually pull you back in. And this is the ultimate truth. A woman's reaction to your silence will always tell you where you stand with her. If she truly values you, she will notice your absence and act accordingly. If she doesn't, then your silence has simply revealed a truth that was always there. You just weren't willing to see it before. When you stop texting and calling a woman, you create a shift in the dynamic that forces her to confront something she rarely has to deal with: uncertainty. Up until now, she has been operating under the assumption that you are always available, that your attention is something she can access whenever she desires. She may not have consciously thought about it, but on some level, she believed that she had control over the situation. But now that certainty is gone, and the moment she realizes that you are not following the usual script, her mind begins working overtime to process what has changed. Women are highly intuitive when it comes to social dynamics, and they notice even the smallest changes in behavior. If you suddenly go from consistent communication to silence, she will pick up on it immediately, but the key question is, how will she interpret it? At first, she may assume that you're just busy. She might convince herself that you'll come back around eventually, that this is temporary, that you're caught up with work or personal matters. And during this phase, she won't panic. She'll wait, she'll watch, and she'll continue with her routine as if nothing has changed. But as time passes and you still don't reach out, her confidence begins to waver. The longer your silence continues, the more she starts to wonder if something deeper is happening. She may think back to past conversations, analyzing your last interactions to see if she missed any warning signs. She may start questioning whether she did something wrong, whether she pushed you away without realizing it. And this is where a fascinating thing happens. Her emotional state starts shifting from security to doubt. Women are not used to uncertainty in situations where they feel they have control. If she thought she had you figured out, if she assumed that she could dictate the pace of your interactions, then your withdrawal disrupts that entire framework. At this stage, she may try small ways to regain control. She might post something on social media that she knows will catch your attention. Maybe a picture, maybe a quote, maybe a story that feels vaguely directed at you. If she feels bold, she might even send a casual message, something that seems innocent but is really a way of checking where you stand. A simple, "Hey, how's your day?" or "Haven't heard from you in a while." May seem like nothing, but in reality it's a strategic move to test whether you're still within reach. But this is where most men make a critical mistake. The moment they receive that message, they respond eagerly, relieved that she's reaching out. They assume that her small attempt at contact means she's ready to invest, but in reality, she's just looking for reassurance. She's testing to see if she still has the same level of power over the dynamic. The true test is not whether she reaches out, it's what she does when she realizes that her small tests aren't enough to pull you back in. If she genuinely values you, she won't just send a vague text or post something indirect. She will make an effort. She will ask deeper questions. She will express curiosity about what's going on in your life. She will show signs that she actually cares about the connection. But if she doesn't take it beyond surface level attempts, then she was never truly invested in the first place. And that's a hard truth for many men to accept. They want to believe that every woman they pursue will eventually reciprocate if they just play their cards right. But the reality is that your silence doesn't create feelings that weren't already there. It only reveals what was real and what was not. If a woman truly cares about you, your absence will create a void. It will force her to reflect on what she feels and whether she's willing to lose you. But if she only saw you as an option, as a convenient source of attention, then your silence will simply make her look for that attention elsewhere. And that is the ultimate lesson. Your value is not in how much you give, but in how much she is willing to give in return. Your silence is not a tactic to manipulate, it's a filter that reveals the truth. And when you understand that, you'll never again waste time chasing someone who was never truly yours to begin with. When you stop texting and calling a woman, the final and most profound realization begins to set in, not just for her, but for you as well. Up until this point, you may have believed that the power in the dynamic was something external, something dictated by how much effort you put in, how much attention you gave, and how often you reached out. But in reality, the most powerful shift happens within you. At first, she might not react the way you expect. She may act indifferent, as if your silence doesn't affect her. She may even continue living her life without making any visible effort to check in or reestablish contact. But what's important to understand is that silence has a cumulative effect. It doesn't always trigger an immediate response. It works gradually, forcing reflection, creating curiosity, and in some cases, sparking regret. And the key difference between a man who understands his worth and a man who is desperate for validation is patience. A desperate man will break his own silence the moment he feels ignored, the moment he doesn't get the response he was hoping for. He will convince himself that he just needs to try harder, say the right thing, or prove his value more. But a man who truly understands his worth knows that his absence is just as powerful as his presence. For the woman, the realization comes in stages. At first, she may justify your silence to herself. She may think that you're playing a game, trying to make her chase, or simply going through a phase. But as time goes on and she sees that you aren't coming back on your own, she starts to wonder. And in that wonder, doubt begins to creep in. She questions whether she miscalculated the situation, whether she underestimated your value, and most importantly, whether she lost something she took for granted. This is the moment where her true feelings become clear. If she genuinely valued you, if she saw you as someone significant, she will not let the connection slip away without effort. She will reach out in a meaningful way, not just a surface level test to see if you're still available, but with real intention. She may ask deeper questions, she may express genuine concern, she may even acknowledge her own part in the disconnect. But if she was never truly invested, if you were just an option to her, then your silence will only serve as an opportunity for her to replace your attention with someone else's. And while this can be a painful realization, it is also a freeing one. It shows you exactly where you stand. It removes any illusions you may have had about her feelings. Most importantly, this experience teaches you something invaluable. Your value does not decrease just because someone fails to recognize it. Your worth is not tied to how much you give or how much you chase. It is determined by how much you are willing to walk away from anything that does not reciprocate your effort. And once you internalize that lesson, once you understand that your silence is not about manipulation but about self-respect, you will never again find yourself begging for attention that should have been freely given in the first place.